We have in the beginning then God. In the beginning was the word, I should say. En archi no logos. I'm using the modern Greek pronunciation here, which we teach in our Bible college. En archi no logos. In the beginning was the word. The logos here is given a capital L in English, which is highly misleading. There's no capital in the Greek. It's also been editorialized there into a capital lambda, and that's wrong. Let's take the word as word. It is a masculine word, but of course masculine gender in grammar is not the same as sexual gender. That's a public confusion. Logos happens to be masculine in its grammatical gender, but word is a word. It's an it. The words that are coming out of my mouth are not persons. They should be a reflection and are of my heart and my mind, of course, but word in itself is an it. In the beginning was the word. Take the capital L off there, and the word, take the capital L off there, was with God, and that's pros ton theon, with the God, the one God, 1,300 times a reference to the Father. Very easy. The one God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, the one God of Jesus indeed. And the word was theos, without the article. Scholars take that, I think rightly, to have an adjectival sense. It was full of the expression of God. It expressed God perfectly. As a man thinks, so is he. We read in the Proverbs, as God is, so is his word. So that word was in the beginning, but no capital there to make it turn into a person. And this same word, utos, was, he repeats himself, in the beginning with God. I note that in Galatians chapter 2, Paul speaks of the word, the gospel, remaining with them. The gospel remaining with them. Pros, with the accusative again. Very similar. So it's quite fallacious to say this must mean one person with another. The contrary is true, because when John speaks of one person with another, he tends to use the preposition meta and para, but not pros. And so, unless we have definite proof that we're to read this as in the beginning was God the Son with God the Father, and we certainly don't, except from much later church developments, all things were made through it. I would translate that. Panta diaptua ieneto. All things emerged or came into existence, came to be a ieneto through it, the word. I've decided the word is not a person, and so I'm following through with the neuter pronouns through it. And without it, nothing that came to be, came to be. Simply, choris avtu, ieneto. Let's go down a bit this way. I was reading the Greek there. Choris avtu, eienete, ude en o iechonen. Nothing came to be that came to be without the Word. The Word is the basis of everything that God created in the beginning. And we don't have to go very far outside the first century local area to go to Qumran, and you find a very simple statement to the effect that without God's purpose, nothing was made. John reflects that very Jewish environment in which he lived. It's very natural for a Jew to speak of the Word as the basis for all creation. In it, in that Word, in avto, life is in the Word. That's exactly reminiscent of Genesis 1, when God says, let there be light, let there be life, the creative life and creative light. And that life, isoi, in tophos ton anthropon, was the light of men. Now note carefully that in verse 5, ketophos entiskotia, and the light was shining, or is shining rather, in darkness, and the darkness did not overwhelm it. Afto, agreeing with light, which is neuter in Greek. It, the light, was not overwhelmed by the darkness. Now, an important point then emerges in the following verses. As we come to speak of John the Baptist, in verse 6, there was a man sent from God. Jesus was also sent from God, nothing to do with pre-existence, commissioned by God. His name was John the Baptist. He was not that light, but he came to bear witness to the light. Down in verse 10, I want you to note that the light has become personalized as a masculine. In other words, this is the feature of grammar which is quite common in the New Testament, where we take a grammatically neuter word and give it personality by breaking the rules of grammar, so to speak. And so down in verse 10, it was in the world, actually he, because Jesus has now come into the world in the story. And the world was made through him, absolutely, with him in mind, with him in intention, as Dr. James Dunn says nicely, with him in intention, and the world did not recognize him now. That light has now become a masculine afton rather than afto, showing personality in the light, because Jesus has gone from a pre-existing plan and purpose to an actual historical person. Now we're in harmony with the birth narratives of Matthew and Luke, and we're not contradicting them. I'm interested in C.B. Caird, Dr. C.B. Caird's wonderful statement from Oxford. He says, how is John 1:1 to be translated? The solution is that logos, word for John, no capital L on logos, notice, primarily means purpose, as we can show from hundreds of occurrences in the Old Testament, where it never means a person. In the beginning was the purpose in the mind of God, and that purpose which was God's own being, fully reflective of God, using theos there without the article in an adjectival sense. And then Dr. Caird says it's surely a conceivable thought, more than that, it's a very obvious thought, that God is wholly identified with his purpose of love, and that this purpose took human form in Jesus of Nazareth. That's from Professor Caird's book on theology, page 332. And I may say that Philo, contemporary, is able to speak of Moses being an embodiment of the law. Moses was the walking law, if you like, the Torah embodied. It's very easy then for a first century writer to say that Jesus embodies the Word of God. That's to say, the Word pre-exists, not Jesus, not God the Son, an invented second member of the Trinity,